I tried to call the hospital next day but couldn't get through. I went over there. They were just bringing in a patient we all knew and were fond of. He was dying and having extreme difficulty breathing. It looked like he would die on the gurney right there in the hall. We hurried to get him into a room and call his family. Hurrying to set up his oxygen, a nurse fell and injured her hand. All evening he was struggling. He would not make it through another night. He was only 31 and his fiancée was with him through it all. And so were we. By the time I went home that night, I was so tired that even aftershocks didn't bother me. I made a bed for myself in a sleeping bag next to a bearing wall of my house and went to sleep. The next day I worked my normal shift in the hospital, and many of the OES fire and rescue people went back to the Cypress overpass. I felt bad that I wasn't with them. The old OES fire department there were many volunteer fire departments out in that Pleasanton, Dublin area back then, and in the consolidation of 1995, OES was the only one that continued to exist. Part of the reason was because our firefighters were so dedicated and were recognized as being hardworking and valuable. That OES, in a way, still exists now as the Alameda County Fire District the reserves section of Alameda County Fire Department, and I'm still working at OES Fire Department I'm sorry, I was doing better reading. I'm still working at the hospital as an emergency department technician. And after I retired from fire service, I started a small business called Disaster First Aid to help people know what to do, the simplest things they could do to keep each other alive until help could reach them in disasters when help can't come right away. The thing that struck me most about this whole event was not even the participation of people like me who were trained and dedicated and already had made a commitment to this sort of thing, but to the people in the neighborhoods in the area of the Cypress collapse. Most of the people who were rescued and saved out of those cars off the top of that horrible crumbling freeway were saved by the people in the neighborhood. Not by the fire department, not by the ambulances, but by the people in the neighborhood using whatever ladders they had, whatever ropes and crowbars and whatever things they had, sheets and blankets to carry people down. And that really showed me and showed a lot of people how important it is to help the people in the neighborhood have the tools and the support that they need, because they are the first ones there when anything happens. And out of that eventually came what's known as the CERT programs. The battalion chief at the Cypress incident was Manny Navarro. I think he's now with an Arizona Fire Department, but he got the idea, and in a lecture that he gave to our Women's Firefighters Association one time, he said, "We are spending the money in the wrong places. 90% of the rescues that were made there were made by the people in the neighborhood. And 90% of the money that was spent on that rescue was spent on all the heavy equipment that had the least results. We should be spending more on the people." And that's what started the CERT training. It's a series of different training, rescue, a little bit of fire suppression, and first aid for citizens. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have a comment. The Oakland program is currently called CORE, Citizens Organized for Emergency Response.
That's correct.
And,
but they're all over the country now.
Right. So
and they're called CERT or NERT or DART. They have various.
Most people I assume are from Oakland, and I just want to say the program is called CORE. You can look it up on the city website, and they are asking for people to come down from the neighborhood and organize for emergency services within their own neighborhood. So it's a very valuable program. I took the training with my wife, and I hope to get the follow-on training. You get a great hat and a great vest, too.
It is very thoroughgoing. It's fun. You'll really enjoy it. It's wonderful people. It's very valuable. You don't necessarily have to organize your whole neighborhood, but if you can get a group to come in together, it's much better. They teach you how to set up your response teams and everything you need to know. You can take as little or as much as you want. They have hands-on training out at the fire department. I really recommend it. I didn't come here to do a promo for that, but I certainly do recommend it.
It's the most appropriate thing to say at the end of your speech.
And they did use my disaster first aid course for a couple of years, and then they went back to just the one that's at CERT. But if you're interested in disaster first aid, come to my website, www.disasterfirstaid.com. www.disasterfirstaid.com. No plug. Thank you.
And thank you for your service, too.
Oh, you know, I wish I could have done more. I just wish I could have done more. And I think we all felt like that. It was such a terrible tragedy, and I'm very worried that we're going to have another big quake and there won't be enough people prepared. But I will tell you this, when it all falls down, in spite of what you see on the 10 o'clock news about how people are and how people don't care, people do care. And when it all falls down, people pull together and help each other. Just like, you know, as you heard from this story, all kinds of people came together to help.
And it actually, just as an aside, it was good preparation, too, for the fire that was 2 years later, because a lot of this was in place. But hopefully there's not a fire or another disaster here for a while, because we've had our share. But although it does feel sort of like earthquake weather.
It's the right time of year.
Isn't that fire almost the same date?
Almost.
It was October, early October.
October 20-something.
Yeah.
19th or 20th.
Yeah. My father-in-law said, y'all ought to stay away from October.
Yeah.
After the 91 fire.
Yeah, right. And here we are.
That was a really scary fire, too.
Please don't go anywhere, because
Must have something to do with that
we would like, if possible, for you to be, if you would be interested in either coming up here and delivering your reminiscences, and also we plan to set up the camera in the back, and then if you want to talk, if you're uncomfortable about talking in front of a crowd, to capture your reminiscences. So I'm going to sort of make it like an open mic, if that's appropriate, because Howard is not here, right? Did Howard not show up? So if anybody wants to come up and tell your story, if you were here, feel free to make sure you introduce yourself. And I'm going to there's going to be an announcement in a couple of minutes, so if